Hi, my name's Pat McCabery, and I've owned Sight and Sound Services in Welches, Oregon since 1991 when I started it with my buddy Tom. In that day and age, it was not nearly as easy to get into editing video as it is now. There's a lot of hardware that had to be bought, and none of it worked all that well as compared to what we can do just in our phones today. So with that, I thought it might be interesting for folks to see how things were done back in the day when computers weren't a part of editing and you had to do everything tape to tape. I dug out the old hardware, hooked it up, and I'm going to take you guys through what it used to take to make videos back in the maybe not so good old days. Through this series of videos, we're going to not only look at the hardware and what it took to produce a video, we're going to take something from beginning to end with some of my old raw footage, and we're going to make a video out of that and then post that on YouTube at the end of this whole thing so that you can see the quality that we were working with in the time and what it took to get there. Of course, in the origins of producing video, it was all done on film. And film had the great advantage in editing that you could see what was on the individual frames, cut the film apart, take the chunks out that you wanted, lay them out, and if you wanted to add something in the middle of your movie, you could cut it apart and put a chunk in there. That would have been known as non-linear editing. You did not have to go from beginning to end in order. And much like today with computers as non-linear editing, you can insert and subtract things anytime you wanted to. But when you're editing on tape, especially like this old Super VHS stuff here, if you wanted to add or delete something partway through the process, that meant you had to start editing again right there. We've all gotten really used to having everything we need in one box to produce video nowadays. And whether that box be a super high power Mac Pro computer for $50,000 or your phone, pretty much all the tools are right there. But prior to the computer generation, all of these things needed to be different pieces of hardware to make stuff done. So to record video, you need to have a separate camera, of course. It's recording onto a tape of some form or another. You needed to have a source deck to play the tape, an editing deck to record your completed project onto. You needed to have a switcher if you wanted to do something like fade to black or dissolve from one source to another. If you wanted a character generator, if you wanted to have some words show up on the screen, that was a whole nother piece of hardware that you had to buy. And all of these things were crazy expensive. Choosing equipment is always a compromise between what you can afford and what you really want to do. So at the time when we were getting started, Betacam was the sort of premier broadcast tape format to use. It's just mind-boggling how expensive it was. For the full top-end broadcast tape decks, the editing deck was over $80,000, and the source deck to feed that was $50,000 or $60,000, as I recall. We got a little excited right when we were getting started because Sony was introducing their new professional series, Betacam stuff, that would be way less expensive, and we thought maybe we can get into that. Yeah, it was way less expensive, but the editing deck was $28,000, and I believe the source deck was $24,000. And with that, you still needed to buy a camera, a switcher, an edit controller, and if you wanted to be able to do a dissolve from one piece of video to another, you're going to need two of those $24,000 source decks. And did you want to put some letters on the screen? Going to have a character generator in there too. I don't even know what those ran for. So when we were choosing hardware and what we were going to base our studio on, we ended up choosing Super VHS. It's sort of an upgraded version of good old VHS. It recorded a higher resolution and was a better signal quality when recorded onto special Super VHS tapes. And for a capture format, it was okay considering the cameras at the time. But by the time you started editing to it, your master of a project was already a copy of the footage and it already started to not look that great. And then by the time you got it duplicated out onto VHS tapes, a lot of this stuff just didn't look very good at all. So follow along. For you old timers, this will be a trip down memory lane. For younger video editors, you might learn a few things about how we used to have to do video projects and where some of the terms and technologies came from that you're happy to use today.